Therapist perception.
Bachelorette. Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I am not a licensed therapist, but this show demands to be talked about, and so I am here to talk about it.
You want to talk about this show as much as I want to talk about this show.
This was the best episode of this. Finally, production gave us some real good quality content.
This was a great episode.
Yeah, best of the season by far.
Yeah, I think it's up there for sure. So we are going to have a lot to talk about today. But before we do, please remember to hit that like button at the bottom of this video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is a small thing that actually goes a really, really long way. And to all of you who've been doing that, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and please also hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
All right, we ready?
I got a few things to talk about.
Of course you do.
Hey, listen, we can't just get into the episode. I got to learn. I got to be educated into this show. So the first thing that I want to ask about is the main event of this episode is a roast. Okay. Mm-hmm. Could there be any possible event that is a better demonstration of the differences between same gender conversation styles than this? I thought it was just an absolutely fascinating case study into how men communicate with men, how women communicate with women, and how we see when those kind of axes cross, how the men particularly are. As a 40-year-old man, I'm like, oh yeah, the women reacted exactly how I expect them to. And Braid and all these other guys, like, they're mad. It's like, yeah, dude, they're mad. How did you not see that coming? Oh, it's because you're 24 and 25 years old. Yeah, I thought it was, I thought it was really, really fun. At the same time, I think it was also could have been very educational for some of the other 20-year-olds out there in what not to do in a relationship, fellas. So.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone didn't anticipate that feelings were going to be hurt. There were some deep burns there.
Oh yeah, there's some deep cuts.
Deep cuts. Yeah, I'm conflating two analogies. deep cuts. It's slow burn. Yeah, that's not the right term.
There was nothing slow about these.
No, yeah, they were vicious.
And the other really kind of noteworthy thing in this episode is this is the first episode where I have absolutely no clue where the roses are going. Where they kind of, we did not have a rose ceremony. They kind of set us up where we had the cliffhanger in the middle of the cocktail party. But I'm sitting there looking at these roses going, I think a few of these guys just sent themselves home with their own stupidity and bad timing. And yeah, I think some fan favorites might have just put themselves in the doghouse and they're going to be going home.
You're talking about my sweet Tanner.
You and your sad boys. He was fake sad this episode. That wasn't even genuine, real sad. That was him trying to play the game, which stay tuned to the end because Tanner is definitely on grade the game this week.
Well, we can talk about how genuine or not we think he was when we get to that part of the episode. But I'm with you. And I think Olivia was narrating for us as she does.
Best narrator.
Thank you, Olivia, as always. And also sharing the same thing that like, it really only seems like the roses that we can count on are Sam's rose is going to Peter, Kylie's rose is going to Avon, and Eliza's rose is going to Aaron. And that, did I say that right?
Yeah, correct. Yep. And those are literally the only three that I feel confident on at this moment.
Yeah.
I also think that we were proven right on a few things. We've been calling the Mercedes Tyler thing as like, he is definitely not that into her, just coasting along. I think we've been proven a little bit right on that one. The Blake and Jess stuff, they're just coasting and she's really not that into him. Again, there's a little Gary Turner-ness to Jess in sort of their self-involvedness. And I think we saw that on full display this time. And we don't know what Blake's response is, but based on where the cliffhanger is, I think we're going to be proven right on the Blake and Jess thing as well. So I feel pretty vindicated. For all you in the comments who were like, you guys are wrong. Like, I'm just saying, hang tight because this feels like vindication.
I don't know. As I've been talking about on the A side with Golden Bachelor, I am like, I surrender to the editors. Like they are really good. They are earning their paycheck.
Yeah. Well, all right. So shall we roll into the episode?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we leave off with Michael. Michael had arrived at the very end of the last episode. We had seen the beach basically rally around Olivia, more or less, begging Michael to take her on the date because everyone really roots for Olivia. We do too. Everyone loves Olivia. She's great. And he pulls a couple of individuals, but in the end of the day, he does end up taking Olivia on the date. I actually really like this date. We know how critical I am about date activities. They did a little dancing to some drum beat, sort of tribalish sort of music, which I thought was great. They were getting down, have moves. This is wiggling. It's not really dancing. It's just wiggling to a rhythm. But you know what? They wiggled with the best of them. So yeah, I enjoyed it. They seemed to have a good time. They had a nice little conversation. But I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I believe Olivia is really that into him. At this point, I feel like it almost might just be a trauma response. Like she has been through the ringer, roller coaster, up and down. Is she just at this point just so desperate for stability and someone to love her and like her and pick her that she's just trying to talk herself into this Michael?
Kind of like how Gary is trying to talk himself into Teresa on this week's episode of Golden Bachelor.
Yeah.
I mean, to call it a trauma response is offensive. So let's just start there.
Okay.
Could she be trying to rationalize, this making sense for her? Sure. And I think that she really does want to be with someone and she wants to have hope. And she also tells us in the moment interview that she has her walls up, has her guard up. She's been burned twice before in this very short time period. And so it seems like she's kind of cautiously optimistic here. And I get it.
Yeah. And for the record, I really like Michael. I think he seems like a cat. He's such a fun guy. The guys like him, the girls like him. Yeah.
I think I literally wrote that down. I love this guy's energy. And note that Michael said, I don't really know how to dance. But he completely threw himself in and was not self-conscious at all. And I love that kind of confidence in someone is really also attractive. Contrast that to Avon on that double date when there's dancing involved. Very, very different energy, two very different types of individuals. But I loved that for him. I loved that for Olivia. And it seemed like they just genuinely had a good time. And Olivia deserves to feel chosen, feel special. She hasn't had a lot of luck. And so she had this coming in the best way possible.
All right, we got a lot to get to. So let's roll on to the arrival of Jordan and Taylor.
Is that his name? That
is his name. So yes, you aren't the only one who didn't know his name. Apparently, Olivia is having a lot of trouble with names this episode. She what I really thought was fun was that Olivia has done a lot of great work for production, and they really helped her out with the names this week. They were just kind of paying her back a little bit for all the help she's been giving them. I like the symmetry in that, but no. So these two,
I did like that they broke the fourth wall there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I thought that was really funny. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, got to use that sparingly, but when used tastefully and sparingly, it's a nice little additive to a situation like this or this kind of entertainment. But so Taylor and Jordan come down together. Is it common for you to get doubles?
Yeah, sure. Doubles can come down, but typically what was uncommon is that typically when doubles are coming down, they'll go on a double date. So it was weird that they had a double date on this episode, but it didn't go to the two dudes that just came down. And even the way that Jesse did it is one of you is going to get a date card, TBD on who that is, go have some conversation. So it was inconsistent with the format of previous seasons.
Yeah, it was a little awkward. So I want to just spend a few minutes on Taylor because this is all we're going to talk about on this entire episode, unfortunately.
He's going to get more airtime from us than he did on this episode and charity season, apparently.
Yeah. So he was a night oneer on charity season. He comes down to the beach. He has a couple of conversations. They're pretty awkward, especially the one with Mercedes. That one in particular, she did not seem into it. He doesn't end up getting a date card. Here's my question / comment on this. Okay, he's coming down presumably before lunch on one particular day. 3 of the 8 girls on the beach are going to be sent off on dates. So 5 of the 3 girls are going to be remaining on the beach. The next day is a rose ceremony, which means they're not going to be together the entire day. And then he's got basically the cocktail party. So, and the event for the day he comes down is a roast event. He has spent no time with these people, so he has no context or experience with these people to actually come up with funny jokes. And he was a night oneer, so he doesn't even have people that might have been on his season to really bounce off of. Did production literally just screw this guy into the ground? What was the point? I can't figure this out. Was he just like sad boy up there crying in a bathroom stall, and production's like, all right, just send him down, send him down? Like, what happened? How did he get down there?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, this goes back to what I said last episode, that it's a fail in casting. Becca, same thing, like fail in casting. And I don't know. I mean, the reality is, like, yes, he read as awkward, but I imagine he's maybe just uncomfortable and anxious. People that typically don't get a lot of screen time, like, just are the most normal people typically that you would meet, like a regular Jane or Joe. And he's probably really uncomfortable with the cameras on. And so we see these like nervous things that he does. He's not well suited to be parachuted in with mere hours to go before a rose ceremony or before the close of paradise. Like, he is not the guy for that.
Yeah.
And it feels like, again, they wasted a spot, they wasted an opportunity. And it sucks. Again, if they had come down with a date card, the two guys, that's a different story, but that is not what happened. The only thing I could imagine that happens, but maybe not even, is Mercedes and Tyler clearly are not gonna move forward. So Taylor says that if he had a date card, he would give it to Mercedes. Are they gonna couple up somehow? I don't know. But again, there's like a couple days left, so what's the point? But anyway, long story short, production, yes, screwed him by casting him and putting him on the show at this point. It was just, he was not set up for success at all.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and like, this is his second shot, and he was a night oneer. Okay, that's just, you know, is what it is. And now it just feels like he's a night oneer again, but this time he was totally just screwed from the start. So yeah, I just didn't understand it. It just felt like he was just a leftover sitting in a hotel somewhere, and they're like, all right, parachute the rest of them in type thing, which is too bad. All right, so that is literally all you're going to hear about, I think, Taylor, from the entire nation. Like, but they did him dirty. So now we move on to Jordan, race car driver. He apparently went on a one-on-one date during Rachel's season. They were quite smitten with each other. He seems like a really nice guy. From all appearances, the date went well, but she sent him home. And then it appears that Rachel has been sort of viewing him as the one that got away, and he has been like, oh, you know what, I really wish it had worked out. And here they have a second shot, and lo and behold, you know, he picks her for the date, but also she was really excited. She thought that he was going to be mad at her or something like that, and they have a really good date. I thought it was a really great date. They had so much chemistry. Rachel, just, it felt like she was the most relaxed, you know, of any time we've seen her on this show, and just sort of in her element and just really genuine.
Even Jordan commented, like, you are so much different now than you were when we met. You just seem so much happier. And she replied, like, I'm just happy that you're here. But you're right. I saw the same thing. She looked relaxed. She looked in the moment. It seemed like they had a lot of chemistry. It seemed like she really enjoyed kissing him, like all of that. He seems really into her. I don't know.
All right, so give me the 30-second backstory of him on Rachel's season.
So as they sort of said on this episode, he kind of made a splash right away on night one. And so therefore he got not the first impression rose, but he got the first date of the season, which is really meaningful. Again, look at Golden Bachelor. Teresa got the first date of the season. She is now in the top 2, runner-up. So first date of the season is typically pretty meaningful. The date, for all intents and purposes, goes really well. Seemed like a successful date, but Rachel was just not feeling it. And she sent him home, which is bananas, because why not just give him a rose and like figure it out?
This was on the first date?
First date of the season.
Is it possible her standards were just impossibly high at that point?
I don't know. It could have been like she was really in her head. I don't know. She got the ick somehow. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. We have some wonderful Bachelor historians that educate us all the time in the comments. So please let me know if this has happened on any other season before, where a lead has sent home someone on the first date of the season. I would love to know that. In my memory, I can't think of anyone. I know that people have left after the first date, like they just kind of disappear and we never see them
like
again.
Sam in the tub.
something like that. But I don't recall if a lead has ever sent someone home on the first night. And so I'd love to know that. So please. But so that's, Rachel made a really impulsive decision, it seems, and she's been living with regret and like the what if of it all for the last year and a half. But it seems like whatever happened on the first date on her season happened again. It seemed like they had this great date, and then we never see him again either, basically.
Yeah. She runs right back to the beach, and she's been trying to, prior to the date, there's been this commentary back and forth about like, I don't know what the Tanner rose means. It was a friendship rose. It was, am I exploring? Are we exploring? I want to explore stuff with them. And just all this back and forth nonsense drama. Again, it comes back to what we talk about all the time. Walk up to him. You have legs. Walk up, open your mouth, and start talking. It's simple as that. Like, I know. Why do these people do that?
Because it's very risky to do. We talked about this with Eliza and Aaron B a few episodes ago, or maybe that was last episode. I don't know. They're all melting together. But because it requires vulnerability and requires taking a risk and could mean that you get rejected. And a lot of people on this beach are really, really worried about getting rejected. And so they are not shooting their shot. They are not doing what feels like the path of least resistance, like just go get the answers that you want, go have the conversation. But that's so much easier said than done, especially in Rachel's position where she has been hurt a lot before and has been rejected basically this entire time on the beach. So it makes sense that she wouldn't be so eager to put herself out there. Even in her conversation with Tanner, I was like, Rachel, I don't even know what you're saying. I cannot follow at all. And even Tanner was like, that was a really confusing conversation. That conversation was really weird. And we hear Rachel later in her conversation with Wells just basically say that she's pretty guarded. Tanner also recognizes that for her. You have your walls up, your guards up. And, Rachel really doesn't want to get hurt. But sometimes you got to get hurt out in order to play the game. That's like part of it.
Yeah, the fear of rejection has always been weird to me. Of all the fears I have in life, rejection has never been one of them. And let me tell you, it is the most freeing thing in the world. Shoot your shot, apply for the job, ask out the girl. You get rejected. I just don't understand that fear of rejection. I know I'm in the minority in that situation, but it's quite freeing, people, if you just stop caring if you get rejected. You will accomplish a lot of things in life, I promise you.
Well, it's really about changing your relationship with failure, essentially. And we as a society have a really negative relationship with failure, that failure fills us with a lot of shame and that it often is related to our own sense of worth. And if we can shift our relationship with failure and just see it more as information, like as you're saying, a no is information. And that allows us the freedom to move forward to whatever the next thing is. And so like shifting a relationship with failure to be more positive, more neutral even, can save so many of us a lot of angst and stress and anxiety.
What you're referring to is actually one of the psychological biases known as risk aversion. And actually, it's a really fascinating case study on human behavior. What specifically this is done in the financial and economic realm, but it holds true in pretty much all of human behavior. And that is that there's a convexity to risk, payoff, and reward. So the average human being receives less happiness from a good result than they do negativity and despair from a bad result. And so what happens is when you kind of chart the payoff, what you see is that there's a convexity in the curvature of what we call utility. And all that basically means is that if a good thing happens, you get a little happy. If a bad thing happens of the same magnitude as the good thing, you get really sad. And we see that all the time. Greatest demonstration of it is actually probably Jess. We see it all the time. And so that's kind of what you're talking about, is changing that. I say all the time, there's two ways to look at, when you have an obstacle, right? Or say you're taking an exam. We've all taken exams, right? You can either be interested in passing and your goal is to pass the exam, or your goal can be not failing the exam. Those sound like the same thing, but they in fact are not, right? There was a certification exam that I was taking, and it's one of these exams that has a high failure rate. And a lot of people will just keep putting it off and rescheduling and rescheduling and rescheduling. And they might reschedule it 3 or 4 times before they finally sit with it. That is somebody who is afraid to fail, and that their goal is not to fail. Whereas somebody like me, I went and sat with it. I went and sat for it the first time, feeling like I was not prepared at all, and I passed it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that, you know, I sat for it when others would have rescheduled it because of a different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
My interest was, I can't pass this exam if I don't sit for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I fail, I fail. I'll just retake it.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I think along with that, and there's so much data and research in the psychological space around how bad we are as humans about predicting how we're going to feel. We always anticipate that we're going to feel so much worse than we actually do. Like the people that are putting off the exam probably anticipate, if I fail, it's going to be devastating. And when they actually fail, it's probably upsetting and, you know, stings a bit, but like you move on. We're more resilient than we give ourselves credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's also what people who struggle to take risks or fear failure are really trying to calculate, is what they anticipate the outcome will feel like. And we're wrong 100% of the time. And so with all of this information, I guess we're encouraging people to just go for it.
Take more risks, people. Yeah. Sit for that exam. Ask that girl or guy out.
Yeah.
Take more risks.
Shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot. I'm not a fisherman, but I was told by fishermen that this is wrong, but I'm going to say it anyways. The fisherman who casts the most lines catches the most fish. Fishermen have told me, no, Chris, that is actually wrong. But you know what? It sounds good to non-fishermen, so I'm sticking with it. Right.
All right. What else we got?
Shall we move on to who actually got the double date?
Sure.
All right. So they bring down a double date card. And can you explain this one to me? Peter and Avon, the two people who are locked, the two people who we know 100% are safe. Like,
maybe that's why they got a date, though.
But like there was nothing. Let me say, I actually enjoyed the date for a different reason, but it didn't do anything to change the dynamics on the beach in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really get it. That being said, I was amused by the date. I had fun with it, but like I didn't get it.
Yeah, I came away a fan of Peter.
Where did that come from? Right? Like, yeah, weird. He's been a weird arc back then.
If you would have told me that he'd still be here till the end, I would have been shocked. Because who the heck was this guy? But we saw a different side of his personality come through, and he seemed like a fun guy. And as I said before with Michael, like that's a really appealing and attractive characteristic about someone, to be able to just kind of go with the flow, to put yourself out there, to not really be afraid to make a fool of yourself. I mean, that's like one of the best parts about you. And it's an area that I struggle with, is that, you know, you kind of just put yourself out there, you ham it up, you whatever. I mean, just for you can have a good time. And dating someone, that's really important to know that you can kind of drop them into a scenario and they'll make the best of it. That's really important, especially if socializing is part of your life, and whether that's family, friends, work events, whatever. So it is a sign of a really good partner. And it was also awesome to see Peter and Sam's relationship in contrast to Kylie and Avon's.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of chemistry too. They seemed to be having a lot of fun together. So that was also cool to see. I mean, I didn't know that I'd be rooting for Sam and Peter, but like, good for you. I'm glad you're having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Sam was going to be a bit of a hellraiser when she came down, but once her and Peter connected up, she's really faded into the background. Yeah. But you know, they pop in just often enough to add a little commentary or narration or whatever. But yeah, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Peter in this episode. I do have a quick question here. Between Michael and Peter, who is the best bad dancer of the two of them?
I think Michael.
Oh, Michael was a great dancer. When he said I'm a bad dancer, I'm like, dude, those are not bad dance steps. You look great. You got the wiggle, you got the Cuban motion going. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I agree. Who was more entertaining?
Yeah, Peter.
Peter by a mile. Oh yeah, absolutely. So one of the other things I thought was quite interesting, and I was really hoping that we would see this at some point in the season. Kylie and Avon, while sitting on a beach with only the entertainment of themselves, seem to work and make sense. But out in the real world, do they? And I think this is the first demonstration that no, they don't. Avon's a kind of a boring, chill, relaxed guy, and Kylie's a young party animal, right? And I mean, she's 20-something who wants to be out there at the 25. Clubs. yeah, wants to be out there at the clubs, partying, drinking it up and whatever. And she more or less said that. And she's like, yeah, Avon doesn't really want to do that.
Mhm.
And this is the first glimpse of like, are they actually compatible?
Mhm.
Right. Um, you know,
Mhm.
so I like at 25, what Kylie's wants is not unreasonable at 25. I'm not saying that. But it's also not conducive to a stable relationship for you to want to be going out and doing that and at the same time be married. You know,
Well,
it's a challenging, you know.
I don't think that matters. I think it's again the compatibility. Where does your partner fall into this? What are the like rules of your relationship? Do you go out together? Is that something that's important to you? Do you care if you go out and he stays home or vice versa? So what are you comfortable with? What makes sense for your relationship? I don't know. I guess we'd have to see. Like, I would hate, and I do actually hate when and I'm sure the feeling is mutual, that when we go somewhere and you are miserable, it is awful. And
when am I ever miserable? You just got done telling everybody that I can be dropped into any situation and I am happy as a clam.
Except for the times that you're not, which are rare, I will say.
It's got to be real, real bad for
Yeah.
me not to at least fake it.
Mostly family functions.
I fake it for all your family functions. I do a better job faking it for your family functions than you do for mine.
I have reason.
Okay, but still, you're married to me. Be nice to my family. They're not going to be nice back, but that's not the point. Be the bigger person, please.
I'm always nice.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I'm nicer than Kylie and Kat.
That's all kind of tripping over that bar, right?
So they return.
Well, wait. The question really is: does Kylie and Avon, do they make it in the real world with what you saw? Do you think that there's compatibility there?
I think they're still together.
Yeah.
Do I think they make sense? I think they're visually a beautiful pairing. I don't get it. I think that it seems that they are both just fixated on the fact that they're two hot people that are very attracted to one another. I don't actually know how compatible they are, despite the fact that they were talking about baby names and they refer to themselves as mom and dad. Like, I don't know. It's
That's
really
a little weird after 2 weeks.
It's really hard to gauge. They both don't appear to have a lot of depth, at least what we're seeing. So maybe they work, but I don't necessarily see it as a long-term sustainable relationship. It just doesn't seem like a very mature relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
Given what we've seen.
Yeah.
So back on the beach, Rachel and Tanner have a conversation or two actually about their relationship. And I know at the top of the episode, we talked about that a little bit, but I do want to spend a little bit more time on it, particularly regarding Tanner's engagement around this with Rachel. Like what were your thoughts while you were watching them have this conversation?
Yeah. So I thought Tanner, the way I look at it is there was two conversations. It was sort of like conversation A, we're going to take a pause for a second because we're not really getting what we need from this. Rachel's going to go off and she's going to kind of have a consultation meeting with Wells. Then they come back and they have sort of part B, right? And I thought if you just take Tanner in a vacuum in A and B, he's getting like a D- for the way he's dealing with it in A, and he gets like a solid B+ in part B, right? So kind of he's not really making coherent sense.
Well,
well,
I think it's because he was trying to react to Rachel. Like Rachel was saying these things. And when I rewatched the episode again today, Rachel was saying like, I just don't want to hurt you. You've had a really negative time here. And he was like,
what kind of time has he had?
He's like, am I giving you like an uncomfortable vibe right now? Cause I'm good. Yeah. Like she was like projecting all of this stuff onto him. Then he kind of turned around and basically said, you need to figure out what you want. Like I'm here essentially, and you need to figure out what you want. You have guards up. You need to figure out what you want. And so I didn't think he did a bad job. I think he was trying to pick apart what Rachel was saying because it made no sense at all. She was like talking in circles. And I was like, where are you going with this girl? Like I could not follow. But for me, initially it read, I'm not that into you and I'm trying to let you down. But she was saying like, oh, I just don't want you to have a negative experience. So like, let's still hang out. And he was just like, you clearly don't know what you want. Go figure that out. So What about that's a D?
Okay, so he needed to drive that conversation.
Mm.
That's why he gets a D. Is that if you look, the main defining difference between the first and second conversations are that in the first conversation, he is exactly as you pointed out, being led around in this conversation in this sort of circular logic. You know, it's clear that she doesn't know where she's going, and at some point in time, it's time for him to take the wheel and to drive this car to the destination he's looking to get to. And if she doesn't want to be a passenger, you let her out of the car. Instead, he just maintained being a passenger in this car that's just driving all over the place. It's lost on you know, in the middle of the city. He comes back in the second conversation, and he's now driving the car. He's saying, this is what I'm looking for. This is why I gave you the rose. This is where I hope we get to. I don't want there to be any ambiguity, period. That's why he jumps from a D to a B plus, because it was now. The question then is, okay, well, if he did all of that, why doesn't he get an A? Well, he gets an A because he just doesn't, there's no tone there. Like it wasn't believable the way he was saying it, in my view. The way he was saying it felt more like, I don't want to go home tomorrow. I want your rose still.
God, I'm so gullible because I was like, damn, Tanner, you are so hot to me right now.
Oh, you like when guys get sad. And this is a problem because I don't get sad. Like, and I need to get sad more. Huh?
Yeah, once that sad boy energy got turned on, I was too.
Just doesn't. Yeah, I gotta figure this out. I don't know how we ended up together when I have like no sad boy energy whatsoever. You know, angsty, sure, you know, but no sad boy energy over here. So anyway, yeah. So the whole Tanner thing was, I thought they ended in a good place.
Right.
Tanner,
I mean, they both say like, all right, let's do this. Let's try this out. We're both in.
Yeah, and that lasted about 10 seconds till Tanner bombed that one. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Freaking moron. Anyway, so yeah, they end that thing in a good spot. Fantastic. And then we move on to Katie.
I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio.
Okay, so I saw one scene in Katie's season. Can you give me the 30-second backstory of her and her season and Blake?
So her season was a COVID season, so it didn't have the ability to do all the travel and this and that. This was a season where Blake also just showed up on, he wasn't part of the original cast, but he just showed up on her season wanting to meet her, and he got let on to her season. Blake is kind of known as kind of like a horny guy, and or at that time was known as that. He's
not
like,
getting that.
He's really not leaning into that. I mean, he's probably matured over the last 3 years or so. And Katie was, of course, this like sex positive bachelorette who came on to Matt James's season opening night with a big purple vibrator or dildo or something.
I heard about that. Okay.
So there was a lot of like they would be so great together kind of talks in between seasons. And anyway, so Blake got himself onto her season, was clearly a front runner. Katie seemed like pretty far down the line with Greg Grippo, and then ended up sending, or I don't remember if she sent him home or he sent himself home, yada, yada. And so she is left, essentially, she had the weirdest top four where it was like, do you even know these guys? Do you like these guys? So Blake and Greg were the clear far and away front runners. And anyway, so she ends up picking Blake. Blake is from Canada, lives in Canada. Katie moved to San Diego at the beginning of their engagement. She remained friends with one of the men on her season, John, I believe his name was, and they had gotten
one of the top four or no?
No.
Oh, interesting.
And they had gotten really, really close. He also lived in San Diego, and so Blake, essentially, Blake and Katie broke up due to distance. Blake was also traveling a lot for his job in like wildlife preservation or conservation, whatever it is. Anyway, so they end up breaking up. And there was, I think in retrospect, Blake had some suspicions about the closeness of Katie's relationship with John. And then like maybe a week, it seemed to be very soon after, I don't know if it was like a week or two or a little bit more, Katie and John ended up being in a relationship. Yeah. And so he felt very kind of like bitter about that.
Yeah, and I think justifiably so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I saw bits and pieces of her season. By that I mean really one or two scenes. Was not a fan of hers.
Yeah, she was definitely not a fan favorite at all.
Yeah, it seemed from the way events played out in this, there was a bit of, we'll say, feigned contrition and apology. It felt like an apology tour of hers for her being here. So I'm going to take a guess and say that the nation doesn't necessarily think highly of her, or whatever happened with the Blake fallout. I'm thinking she was probably the one who's taking the brunt of the blame. Is that accurate or no?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Again, she was not a fan favorite as a Bachelorette. She did not like win the breakup by any means. And Katie's been really criticized for just being kind of like a fame chaser. And you know, she has distanced herself from the franchise, again, not surprisingly, because she was not favored very much. And she's currently on another reality dating show called FY Island. And she's apparently launching a stand-up comedy career.
Oh, wait, you're serious?
Yeah, that's serious, actually.
She was terrible. I mean, her jokes were bad.
It's hard to be a comedian.
It is really, being a comedian is really, really hard. Yeah. I mean, but no,
that like wasn't a joke. Like that's actually a career.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You thought that was a joke.
I thought I was wondering like why send her down for the roast, to be the host of the roast. I just thought like, oh, we're going to do this. And, you know, this is a great time to drop her in there, because they clearly want her to finally have this confrontation with Blake and all this other good stuff. And this was just sort of how they were going to maneuver that. But oh, wow. Well, I don't see, sometimes people like, this is like my brother, where he's like, hey, I'm going to start this business doing some crazy nonsense. And you're like, yeah, you're not going to be in that business in 6 months. You just kind of know. This feels like one of those times. I don't see comedy in her future. So Kitty comes down. It's not abundantly clear what she's actually coming down for. There is a bachelorette on the beach. So could it possibly be to date? Seems certainly plausible given that she is single. First person she grabs is Blake.
Well, before she grabs him, the entire beach is like just sitting there staring at her. And she's like, hi. Like, and then of course, Brayden is the first one to get up and say hello. But yeah, no one was, I don't know if they weren't happy to see her, they were just shocked to see her, but their reaction to her was notable in that they just sat there.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in a second, because there's two notable things about the responses of all the cast members. That's the first. And the second is when her and Blake come back from their talk. So let me circle back on that. But yeah, so her and Blake go have a conversation. And this was one of those times where, production wanted this to happen. They were facilitating it. Blake should have probably expected it more than he did. I give him a lot of credit because sort of got a little blindsided in a conversation he wasn't ready for. I thought he handled it really well. It takes a lot for an individual to sit there and say, I'm like really shell-shocked right now, and it's just really weird for me, and I'm really just sitting here processing it. And to sit there with the silence, taking the time to process it and speak sort of methodically and carefully about what he's doing. A lot of people will just start that nervous talking, or they'll just start saying things, or they'll start to let their emotions bubble up. I give Blake a lot of credit, because I thought, given the situation, there's so many ways that he could have handled it, but this was a very mature way to handle it. And it just demonstrated kind of the type of husband he would be, where he's faced with a extraordinarily emotionally challenging situation. And he didn't let those emotions get the better of him, or really drive. He sat calmly and figured his thoughts out. Right.
Yeah, no, I thought the way that Blake showed up in that conversation was great. It was vulnerable to say, like, to continue to kind of narrate, like, I'm shell shocked. Like, even when he was saying like, I just don't think about this. Like, I just don't. And you could hear like the pain in his voice and in his facial expressions. Like, this was really hard for him. And
he did not, there was no blame that we saw. I mean, we didn't see the whole thing, but he didn't throw blame around. He didn't do a lot of statements. It was a lot of I statements, and how I'm feeling and how I'm reacting to all of this. You know, and it sounds like he would be quite justified in putting more of the blame on their breakup on her. But he just didn't take that tact at all.
Right. And she gave him opportunities to. She said twice, you know, I could have basically done things differently, or should have done things differently. And he didn't take the bait.
Yeah, I love the honesty, the raw emotional honesty of it all. When he said, you know, no, I remember there was 6 messages. I could probably basically recite them word for word what they actually were. I didn't respond because of the place I was in, and I just didn't want to go there, and that was it. And I mean, that is a telling statement right there. It tells you the maturity of the person. It tells you, you know, just what they were feeling, what they were going through, what the impact of those events were. He said a lot in a few words, and I liked Blake. I think I don't necessarily think that he's been great on this season, because he got locked into Jess too early, and it's been a little too boring for him. But like, I really had a lot of respect for him, and my respect for him has grown a lot. I like the guy. I would be buddies with the guy. And I thought this was a really great moment for him. Whether or not he felt he needed the closure or not, whether or not he actually got the closure, I don't know. Can't speak to that, but it was a good moment for him.
Yeah,
I would think the nation should look fondly on him. And, you know, I'll be honest, that might have been, and you tell me, that might have been the best interview or application to be the next Bachelor.
Yeah, I mean, it's giving Nick Viall like all over again in some way.
He's got a podcast too, I hear.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh. So the one quick thing, just to circle back to what I was talking about before, Katie and Blake come back to the beach. And that's when Katie makes the announcement that she is going to be hosting a roast. And she lays out a couple of bad jokes. But here's the thing. She takes a shot at Blake here, which is interesting, maybe a little tasteless. The problem is, you know, one, she's like, oh, I don't know if you're going to be here. Like, obviously she did. Production did not send her down there. And she just happened to have this joke in her back pocket. Like, maybe she had like 5 different jokes and she was going to play them depending on who was actually down on the beach. And depending on how the conversation with Blake went, right? Who knows, maybe. But anyway, so she tells this joke. But the important thing is the response. She tells a couple of jokes and nobody laughs. And I just want to point out that I think this speaks more between nobody responding when she walks in and just staring blankly at her and nobody laughing at her jokes. I think this speaks more to the respect and the amount that people like Blake on that beach, and how much they were really sort of indirectly rallying to him and really being in his corner here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Blake clearly has friends on the beach. He doesn't. I know last episode we talked about the clickiness of the beach, and we see Blake hang with Kat, we see Blake hang with Olivia, we see Blake with Rachel. I mean, he has not necessarily like picked a side. He just seems like such a mild-mannered, like chill dude who gets along with anybody. So, and that really came through.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's roll into the roast ceremony itself. Now, most of the jokes were pretty bad, but there were some vicious ones in there. The one in particular that I want to talk about, we've already alluded to it, is the Tanner taking the shot at Rachel about Gabby. Tanner, why? It's fine if you wrote that joke and you thought it was funny. Give it to the person next to you. You cannot deliver that. It sent Rachel in a complete spiral. Naturally,
she was already spiraling.
She was already spiraling, sure. But like, I like you. How did you not see that coming? You can't 10 seconds ago say, I am committed to you. I want to explore this. Oh, and hey, by the way, I'm going to go hit you on a piece of, a sort of a, I'm going to hit you at a pressure point that is really going to, poke at one of your big anxieties and insecurities. So I think that moment right then and there sealed Tanner's fate that he is not getting Rachel's rose. I think her rose is completely up in the air. And your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, that one hurt. That one hurt. And we see, I mean, she was crying after, I think she was talking to a producer and saying, like, I thought he liked me. And I like told him things in confidence that he then used like against me. Like, oh God, that was heartbreaking.
And predictable. That's the worst part.
I know. I don't know how anybody meaning Tanner, thought it would go a different way. To anyone that was helping Tanner write these jokes, why did you let him? That's one of those, like, no, it's a bad idea, don't do it. But you know,
well, I actually have I have a take on this. So the quick take is this goes back to men and women communicate differently to, you know, within their own gender, right? Men are constantly roasting one another. If three men, boys or men at any age, does not matter the age, if three males are in a room together, it turns into a roast. Always, 100% of the time. That's just how we communicate with one another, right? And so we don't think anything of it. Just ripping on the guy next to you. He could be your best friend, your buddy forever, and you're going to hit him on every possible insecurity that he has, and that is okay. In kind of the culture of men, we do that. That's just what we do. That's how we communicate with one another. Women don't communicate that way, you know, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on women's internal communication.
They're mean to each other behind their backs.
Yeah, it's just different. But when you guys are in a room together, like you're not doing that. So men in a roast, we're just like, oh yeah, this is just a roast. We're just gonna, you know, no, we don't even think for half a second that anybody's gonna take this personally, because it's so ingrained in how we interact with other men. But you know, when you're in a mixed gender situation here, you know, you can't speak that way about women. And I just don't understand how. Like Braden the next morning, you know, over breakfast, he's like, the girls are really mad. I don't get it. And like, and John Henry or whoever it was, that was like, really? It's like, yeah, they're like really mad. And I just turned to you, I'm like, how are they, like, how dumb are these guys? And the answer is, it's not that they're dumb, it's that they're 25. And that they just don't have the experience and maturity. If that was a beach of 40-year-old men, the 40-year-old men would have all ripped each other up and down, and every single one of the men would have been like, I'm not saying that joke to the women. Are you nuts? I know where that's going. And that's just the experience of you know, learning about how, you know, how men and women are different. And that's my theory on how this happened. Just a couple of 25-year-olds that haven't quite figured out that the way men and women communicate internal of themselves is different.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm speechless. I'm speechless.
So what was your favorite roast?
I liked the one about John Henry being colorblind because he can't tell a red flag from a homie hopper. I liked that. I
just wish that the homie hopper thing was a different color. Like the fact only one was colored, it threw me off, but I liked it conceptually. Yeah. I really wanted to like that joke a lot. Yeah. I loved Olivia's "How do I taste?" That was, and see, that was classic, like going for the jugular right there. And I thought she nailed it. I love that one. Believe it, I thought Tanner actually had the best jokes. I thought he was the funniest.
There were deep cuts there too, with deep cuts. Botox for Kat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Went right at Kat too.
She actually rolled with that one. She's like, all right, good. I know it's working. So there were also a ton of jokes about Jess, baby Jess, apparently is what they call her, about how she, again, a Kat, her friend, made a joke about her having a pacifier in her mouth. A lot of people alluded to the age difference between Blake and Jess. And just for the record, Jess is 24 and Blake is 32. So there is a pretty significant age difference there. And Jess was having a really hard time with the baby Jess jokes, though Jess's immaturity makes her a really, really easy target. And so if you don't want to be referred to as a baby, then I don't know.
Don't act like one. I was going to say, they call her baby Jess because of her age. I think you can call her baby Jess for another reason, right? And that's just the lack of maturity. She's constantly crying about something, constantly sort of a level of entitlement and sort of poor me. And, you know, like, you know, as you mature, you're supposed to realize that the world doesn't revolve around you. And she still hasn't reached that point, realizing that the world doesn't revolve around her. So, you know, and, you know, I mean, she's 24, right? You know, Lots of 24-year-olds were in the same boat. So
as Sam said to Sean, your prefrontal cortex is not fully formed yet.
Not formed yet. Yeah.
So
no, that's fair. That's fair. Sean was what, 26?
25, 26.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah. All right. So I just want to talk very briefly, just to follow up on the Tyler Mercedes thing. Mercedes took she didn't take direct fire. It was really more about how Tyler is just not that interested in her. And this seemed to be news to her. And I don't know why, because it's been so apparent to the rest of us for the entire season. But yeah, and even Tyler took a shot at her during the
we don't actually know what he called her, but he said something like Mercedes thinks she's a Mercedes, but she's really a blank. I don't know.
I don't know what the blank was, but like, I don't even understand how that's a roast. That's just a direct insult to the girl you're supposed to be dating.
I mean, your brother sort of said something like that about his wife once.
It was really a compliment to you. What did he say? He said, you're like a Rolls Royce and my wife is like the clunker down the street. Was it something like that? What car did he call you?
I don't know, like a Ferrari or something.
Yeah. Checks out. I think you're a Ferrari. Do you see the Lamborghini that was in the front of our building last night? Yeah, there was a Lamborghini in the front of our building. It's
Miami.
Yeah, some douche going to the restaurant next door. He's like, "That's my Lambo right there." I was like, "This is my backpack right here." I don't. What are we talking about? Like, okay. Yeah. All right. So let's get beyond the roast. Feelings are hurt. Next morning, we already talked about it. The guys are befuddled that the women are upset. It is rose ceremony day, so they don't see each other all day. We come together at the cocktail party. Now, this is an explosive cocktail party because everything is up in the air. All the women are upset. We saw them during the earlier day, sort of like breakfast, getting ready, whatever part of the day. They're talking about not giving roses to any of the guys. That's how upset they are. In fact, was it Olivia who's like, we just won't give roses to anybody. We'll sit on the beach by ourselves for the rest of the time here.
That's what Rachel said. Well, what if we just don't give roses to anybody and we all just stay?
Yeah. Listen, I actually don't hate that as an idea. That would be, and then just production, just like, who do we got in the back room? Just start throwing them down, cut down there. Date cards for everybody. So anyway, so I think the highlights here are, we don't, I think, see anything from Tyler and Mercedes in terms of conversation, right? So that's sort of a hanging thread.
No, not at the cocktail party. They have a conversation, I think, after the Truth Box incident where they were talking about long distance. And Tyler gave this same answer as Leslie did on Golden Bachelor, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Like a totally
like what?
Yes, that's right. She had the response that Gary was supposed to have. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So he more or less just said to her flat out, like, yeah, I'm not interested in you, actually. I'm just coasting along.
He implied that. He did not say that.
Yes.
He said it without saying it.
He said it without saying it, but it was pretty clear. We got Blake and Jess on a cliffhanger. It sounds like Blake is we see Jess's anxiety and insecurity flared up aggressively, and we see Blake about to have a pretty strong talk with her about something, and it's queued up to feel almost like a breakup, but it would be really weird for him to do that at a rose ceremony. So we'll see how that gets edited out next time. We really see nothing by way of Tanner or Rachel, and I do want to come back to Tanner very, very quickly. You had said, I think it was last week, that Tanner is going to have to start playing the game. And I was like, what do you mean? He's Tanner. He's a hot commodity. He's fine. You were right. I was wrong. And he's playing the game poorly. I'm just going to say that. So he does have to play it, and he's not playing it well. And then who else we got? The three couples that we know are fine. The new guys, we've seen nothing from either of the three new guys. Saw nothing from Olivia. So I'm hoping that the next episode is spending like 60 minutes on this cocktail hour, because there are so many threads out there that I'm just like, what's going on? Where are all these people?
Right.
So yeah, your thoughts?
No, I mean, none in addition to that. I think I hope next episode is going to be a really good one. I'm bummed we have to wait 2 weeks to see it.
Yeah. All right. Shall we move on to grade the game, or is there anything else you want to talk about first?
No, let's do grade the game.
I'm so conflicted on this. She gets an A.
D minus. We got 4 people this time. We're going to do the 3 new guys, and then we'll do Tanner. All male grade the game. I didn't realize that. Yeah, interesting. Okay. We'll start them in order. Michael?
Yeah, I thought Michael was great. I think he gets an A. I mean, based on what we saw. He had great energy. He definitely made himself known. He made good use of a date card. He got right in there with Olivia. He acknowledged the lack of time that they have, but that doesn't mean that they can't form a connection outside of here. So I give him an A. I also just like him. So A for me.
I'm an A minus, and it's only because for all the same reasons you said, the only reason I don't give him the full A is because, and maybe it's an editing job, but we've seen no interaction with them post date, and I would like to see some interaction indicating that there's some momentum in this relationship. Yep. Okay. Let's do Taylor.
God, all these names: Taylor, Tyler, Tanner. I don't know. Are they all the same person?
They're not the same person.
So is he even gradable? I mean, D. I don't want to give him a full F because it's not his fault. He pulled a person who was available and talked to her. He was just so uncomfortable, and he just didn't do a good job. I don't see a bright future for him here. I just don't think he's well suited for the beach. So I feel uncomfortable grading him because it doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say C minus because I think production really screwed him. But at the same time, if I'm in that situation, I'm coming down guns a-blazing and I'm going to make my presence known some way, shape, or form. Not that dissimilar to what Sam did when she came down, right? And I know it's a different situation. Sam had a rose. He does not. But like still, there was just so much going on in this episode. Maybe he did, and it just didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
But from what we saw, he sort of came down. He's been passive, and there's been nothing else going on. I'm not going to give him a D or an F only because he was put into an impossible situation.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, then we go to race car driver Jordan.
Jordan, I am going to give him a B plus. I think he had. He knew Rachel was going to be there. He looked great. And there's like nothing better than seeing an ex or seeing someone who screwed you over and knowing that you look really good. It's very satisfying, as like petty and whatever as that sounds. It probably sounds terrible coming from a therapist, but I'm a human too. So there was that element of like, he looked really good. He like pumped up a lot. And he went straight for Rachel. He took another shot with Rachel, and that was risky to do, but he did it. He seemed so locked in with her, like eye contact wise, compatibility wise, chemistry wise. The reason I'm not grading him higher is because, again, we see no follow up with them. He just kind of disappeared after the date.
Yeah, I'm a B minus. Mainly because I agree with all of your points. I don't feel as good about him going after Rachel, only because this is a girl who already rejected him once. And
I think it was an ego thing that he made that choice with Rachel. I would have not picked Rachel.
I think a lot of it was he grabs her first to have a conversation, and the conversation actually goes really well. And I do think like he could have taken that conversation in 2 ways. He could have just come down and said, hey, I just want to like pick you first, have a conversation just to make sure that everything's cool or whatever. And basically with no intention of pulling her on the date.
Yeah.
But then when she's like, no, she's really demonstrating she's interested and really happy about this. It's like, oh, you're telling me I've got another shot here. So it's one of those things where I can't dock him too much because I don't know what his actual intention was with that.
Right. Well, the thing that I wish that we had seen, I don't know if it happened or not, is some sort of conversation about like, what happened?
Yeah.
What was it that made you send me home? And what do you think is going to be different now?
Yes.
Like, I would have loved to have heard that because that's the big elephant in the room.
Yep, exactly. And I would have asked that before I went on the date.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. But certainly when they were on the date, again, there was a lot going on this episode. It could have just been cut for time. This would be the one episode where I'd love to see like the deleted scenes, like show me the 20-25% that didn't make it, right? The extra 30 minutes or whatever that didn't make it. But yeah, so, I'm in that kind of, B- type range for those reasons. And that brings us to Tanner.
Oh, it's such a strong climb. I was giving him an A. And then the roast, like, look how stressed I am. Then the roast happened. And I was like, that was, what do you refer to it as? An unforced error?
Unforced error. Well, well, that's what baseball refers to it as. Not
well, on Golden Bachelor, he keeps referring to a lot of these decisions Gary is making as unforced errors.
Yeah.
And this was an unforced error on Tanner's part. WTF? Like, what are you doing? Oh, it's like so clear he's just a hot dude that doesn't actually need to try.
That's exactly it, right? And so I'm going to focus specifically on the F in the WTF, because that's what he's getting from me. I mean, this was so dumb. I mean, I didn't think he was particularly genuine. I thought he did, he was a B with the, after the second conversation with Rachel for me. And then, I mean, he just completely torpedoed himself in the roast ceremony. So, I mean, that he just F. I think he's going home. I don't think he's getting a rose. I think Rachel would be insane to give him one.
All right, rose and thorn.
My rose this week, I loved the way production and Olivia were sort of messing around with the names. Olivia had no idea who's Michael's what Michael's name was. The whole time with Taylor's name. I just thought that was really funny. You talked about breaking the fourth wall. I typically am not a huge fan of breaking the fourth wall, but occasionally I do enjoy it, and this was the time where I did enjoy it. What about you?
Okay, are you ready for this? My rose this week goes to Kat.
How? How?
So I've been very hard on Kat this season, and my biggest criticism of Kat is her lack of self-awareness. And Kat opened up the episode saying, I feel really good with John Henry right now. I know that I haven't necessarily gone about things in the right way on Paradise, and I've probably hurt people's feelings, and I don't want to do that anymore. And so thank you for the self-awareness and the acknowledgement. She also went on to say that seeing the way that John Henry handled things with Olivia was, she didn't use the word inspiring, but like good to see. And
eye-opening.
And that she needs someone in her life like John Henry, because John Henry will help her to be a better person. And I thought, again, more self-awareness. That's not your partner's responsibility.
It is your partner's responsibility to help you.
How many times have you and I both said to one another, like, you make me a better me? And so I just want to, I know that I've been really hard on Kat. That's all I was looking for. And so she can get my rose this week.
Yeah. Listen, I think that is surprising, but fair. I didn't actually pick up on it because there was so much else going on. That Kat was sort of a little quiet this episode. So I just sort of zoned her out. But that's really good, valid point. So my thorn for the week, I'm actually calling it audible. And I'm changing it based on information that I have learned in this podcast recording. My thorn, Katie's comedic career. Don't see it happening, Katie. I'm sorry. Prove me wrong. I will be the first to admit, if you put out a funny Netflix special or something, I will watch it and I will thumbs up it for you, but I don't see it happening.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's such a hard job that I feel like I can't even weigh in on it. Like, if you want to do that for a career, good luck. You are brave. It's hard. Yep. My thorn goes to Avon and Kylie.
Yeah.
I'm just over them. Their self-importance as a couple is just annoying. I just find them annoying. Like, just please leave.
Had enough of the hot people problems.
It's just, I don't know. I don't have a good reason for them to get my thorn other than every time they're on the screen, I just want them to be off. I don't think, in contrast to what Kat said about John Henry, I don't think that they're two people that make one another better. I actually think they're two people that make one another worse. And so I don't need to see it anymore. I welcome the end of this season so that I don't need to see them anymore. They're not going to resurface at a later point. And so I know that when the season is over, we'll be done having to see them. So I look forward to that day.
Yeah, that's fair. I, for one, would be happy not to see them on any more future Paradises.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. You want to get out of here?
Yes, yes. But before we do, even though the Bachelor franchise is taking a break next week and not giving us any new content, we will be back. And we have another episode of Reactivity TV coming your way where we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the relationships on Golden Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise. I'm going to be giving more of my therapist take on things like attachment styles, love languages, all that good stuff. If there's anything specific that you want some commentary on, drop it in the comments. We'd love to do that. So look out for that. Also, if you are watching The Golden Bachelor and you haven't watched part A, our reactions to Golden Bachelor episode 8, definitely go check that out. That's already up and out there. And we also have another podcast if you want to continue to follow along with us. It's called Wishing You Well. It is where my therapist, co-host, and I, Catherine, help you navigate your wellness journey because living a well life is so important and yet so complicated and difficult to do. So we help you figure that out every week on Wishing You Well. You can find that on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can continue to follow along with us on Instagram at ReviveCFW. You can follow me at Amy Albero LCSW, and you can check out our website, revivecfw.com. All right, we will see you next time. Bye.
See ya.